Only Sony can go from releasing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, one of the greatest superhero films of all time, to releasing Madame Web in less than 1 year. Are we really surprised that this movie isn't good though? I feel like it's a bad omen when your protagonist's superhero suit is revealed via ocean spray bottle. I'm not even joking. This was our first look at Madame Web's costume. The only thing weirder than the marketing for this movie is the movie itself. This movie is absolutely horrendous, and I'm going to explain why. But to do that, I have to go into spoiler territory. So if you have plans to watch this movie, I recommend you pause this video, go watch the movie, and come back. All right, let's dive into why Madame Web fails on every level. So a woman who is 9 months pregnant is in the jungles of Peru looking for a spider. She ends up finding it, but is quickly betrayed by a guy she brought along to help her. Bad guy steals the spider and escapes, but not before shooting her. Then, as she's about to die, a tribe of people with Spider-Man powers swing down from the trees. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, so a tribe of people with spider powers pick her up and start swinging through the trees with her. They take her to a body of water, have another magical spider bite her, then they deliver her baby. The chief of the tribe says something like, "Your daughter will come back here someday." Then the mom dies, and bam, we're in 2003 New York with adult Cassie Webb, played by Dakota Johnson. No explanation for how the baby managed to escape the jungles of Peru, or how Cassie ended up in New York. Nothing. We're just in 2003 New York now. All right, sure. Anyway, Cassie is now a paramedic in Queens, New York, with Ben Parker, played by Adam Scott. Yes, that Ben Parker. One day on the job, she falls off a bridge into water, and that experience somehow triggers the power she got from the spider that bit her mom right before she was born. She discovers that she's able to see the future, manipulate time, and alter traumatic events. We then find out that the bad guy from earlier also has powers now. I assume because he stole the spider from earlier. Anyway, he has powers now, and he's been having reoccurring nightmares where 3 spider women kill him in the future. So naturally, he decides that he needs to put on a rip-off Spider-Man suit and kill them before they can kill him. So using what the movie describes as advanced technology, he's able to figure out the identities of the spider people in his dream. Yes, it's just as ridiculous as it sounds. He goes to kill them, but Cassie's there and helps the girls escape. Basically, the rest of the movie is just Cassie and the girls running away from rip-off Spider-Man. And then she eventually decides that she needs to go to Peru. In Peru, she meets the chief of the Spider People tribe from earlier in the movie, and he helps her unlock the ability to be in multiple places at once. She also discovers that the reason her mom went to Peru while 9 months pregnant was because she needed the spider's venom to save Cassie from a deadly hereditary disease. She then comes back from Peru, fights Rip-Off Spider-Man next to a giant Pepsi logo, and then just kinda moves out of the way, and part of the Pepsi logo falls on him and he dies. She then takes a fireball to the face, which paralyzes her and causes her to go blind. We jump forward a little bit, and the movie ends with a shot of Madame Web and all of the girls in superhero suits. And just in case you were wondering, no, this movie offers no explanation for how or why the girls have superpowers now. So yeah, that's the plot of Madame Web. It's not good. Now that we've talked about the plot, let's talk about the main character. Madame Web is a frustrating character. Towards the beginning of the movie, there are several scenes where she's in these social settings acting super awkward, and I know they're trying to make her relatable and hashtag quirky, but most of the time it just doesn't work. One thing I do like about her character is her powers. The concept of a superhero with the power to see the future, be in multiple places at once, and relive and change traumatic events is pretty cool. And to the movie's credit, they did a decent job of showing her powers in action. However, there was a point in this movie where I realized that nothing bad could really happen to Cassie or the girls, because Cassie could just see it before it really happened and then go back and stop it. But overall, her abilities were cool, even if they were a little overpowered and ruined any chance of this movie having real tension or stakes. Evil Spider-Man is awful. He's barely even a character. They don't even bother trying to give him compelling motivations for why he's evil. He's just bad because this movie needs to have a bad guy. I don't even remember what his name is. Let me go look it up. Ezekiel? He doesn't even have a real supervillain name. His name is just Ezekiel. Apparently Ezekiel is a real character from the comics, but in the comics, he's not really a villain, nor does he wear a superhero suit. Yep, that's right. This rip-off CW-looking suit is completely original to this movie. I never would have guessed. The suit is clearly supposed to look like Spider-Man, even though Peter Parker isn't even born until the end of this movie. Does that imply that Peter Parker would go on to base his Spider-Man suit on the suit of some guy who tried to kill his uncle's coworker back in 2003? The worst part about this villain has to be the terrible ADR. Half the time this dude is on screen, his lips don't match up with the words he's saying. It's incredibly distracting and makes a character who's already goofy even goofier. Isabella Marced, Celeste O'Connor, and Sydney Sweeney were okay, even though their characters are kinda given absolutely nothing to do, except run away from evil ripoff Spider-Man. You know all those shots in the trailer of the three of them in super suits? Well, if you've seen the trailer, you've pretty much seen everything there is to see of them in costume. I don't think it's fair to blame them for their characters being boring. I mean, it's not their fault this movie's script kinda sucks. The fact this movie is so bad actually kind of makes me sad for them, because you can tell from interviews that they were all really excited to be part of a Marvel movie.
I begged and begged and begged to have my character drop from the ceiling, because that's just what Julia would have done.
It's just a shame that their talents ended up being wasted on this complete dumpster fire. The only other side character who I feel is worth mentioning is Adam Scott's version of Uncle Ben. I'm a big Parks and Rec fan, so that might make me a little biased towards him as an actor, but he's good at playing the part of overwhelmed nice guy. So I thought his take on the character was alright, even if the character of Ben Parker didn't really need to be in this movie. Seriously, you could switch his name to any other name and it would not change the plot at all. The music in this movie is, well, at best it's generic, and at worst it's completely plagiarizing music from other Spider-Man media. I don't know, is it plagiarism if Sony's stealing from themselves? Either way, I find it kind of manipulative. It's almost as if Sony is saying, hey, you know those good memories you have associated with Spider-Man PS4? Well, you have to like this movie too, because it has the same music! If you're curious to see how similar the music actually is, I'll put some links in the description so you can go see for yourself. I don't know how this movie was made. I thought Sony learned their lesson after the disaster that was Morbius, but apparently not. This movie is so laughably bad that it's almost good. There were points where I simply could not contain my laughter due to how absurd everything happening on screen was. Madame Web is a decent time if you're looking for a good laugh, but if you're looking for a movie that's as good as any of the recent Spider-Man movies, this movie will severely disappoint you. The plot is a confusing mess. When the characters aren't boring, they're extremely cringy, and the action is pretty dang lame. Except for the part where Madame Web hits evil Spider-Man with a car. That was pretty funny. Almost as funny as the part where she hits him with an ambulance. The bad guy is hit by 2 cars and is crushed by a giant Pepsi logo in this movie. Who am I kidding? This movie is amazing. 10 out of 10. Best movie ever.